She collapsed at the airport, 7 months pregnant, no ID, a dog tag clutched in her hand. And the military canine beside her? He didn't bark out of instinct. He barked like he remembered her. But how can a dog remember someone he's never met? Minutes later, a sealed vault opened for the first time in 20 years, and everything unraveled. What was she carrying? Who was she running from? And why does the dog only obey her without a single word spoken? Something buried is waking up, and one child long thought gone is still watching. Think you figured it out? Think again. Hit subscribe, tell us where you're watching from, and drop your wildest theory in the comments. The cold buzz of Red Hollow International Airport filtered through the polished floor and sterile lighting like a heartbeat muffled under layers of asphalt and glass. Officer Malik Rowan adjusted his stance beside the customs checkpoint, one hand resting lightly on the leash of his canine partner, Onyx. The German Shepherd's coat, black with deep caramel streaks, glinted beneath the overhead fluorescence. The dog stood rigid, ears perked, tail taut. For the last 7 years, Malik and Onyx had worked like twin neurons. Silent communication, unbreakable trust. Onyx had never failed to detect danger before it arrived. And today, that tension in his posture was something new. Not just alert, not just ready. Onyx was bracing for something. Malik's eyes swept the crowd. It was the start of spring break traffic. Students, families, the occasional solo traveler pacing with headphones in. But Onyx's gaze locked on one figure, a man in a gray hoodie with earbuds in, standing 30 feet away near the vending machines. His backpack hung low. He wasn't doing anything unusual, but Onyx growled a low, sharp vibration that buzzed through Malik's glove. "Easy, boy," Malik murmured, following the line of his dog's sight. Then she appeared. A tall woman in a navy blue trench coat stepped off the escalator with deliberate grace. Her sunglasses were too dark for the indoor lighting. Her blouse stretched against a full belly, 8 months at least. Both hands clutched brown paper bags. She looked like someone who'd spent months rehearsing how to seem normal. Malik's gaze flicked between her and the man in the hoodie. Onyx's growl didn't shift, but as soon as the woman Zephyra Ashland, as they'd later learned, stepped closer to security, Onyx broke his posture. He barked, loud, ferocious, sharp enough to slice clean through the chatter and intercom announcements. Passengers jerked around. A baby began to cry. Zephyr froze mid-step as though the sound had pierced straight into her bones. Onyx lunged, leash strained, claws screeching across the floor. Malik yanked back just enough to hold him. The dog didn't stop barking. He wasn't aggressive, he wasn't attacking, he was warning. "Matt?" Malik called, stepping forward. "I need you to stop." Zephyra tilted her head slightly, her lips unmoving. Behind those thick sunglasses, her expression didn't shift. Not a flicker of fear or surprise. She seemed to already know. She took 2 more steps and then collapsed. It happened so fast, Malik almost missed it. 1 second she was upright, the next crumpled like a dropped coat. The paper bags burst open. A small teddy bear bounced across the tiles. Bottles rolled. 1 envelope landed near her outstretched fingers. People around gasped. Some moved forward. Others froze. Malik was already at her side, radio crackling as he called for medics. Onyx circled her body, whimpering, still tense. But Malik's eyes locked on the envelope. It was stained at the corner. Folded, the single word scrawled across the center in shaky all-caps ink read, "Sorry." He picked it up, feeling the rough texture beneath his gloves. The name on the dog tag, because now it had slipped loose from around her wrist, wasn't hers. It was his, but deep down, something was waking up, a memory, a feeling he'd buried under years of duty and detachment. Medical crews arrived and swarmed the scene. Malik stood back, envelope in his pocket, heart pounding louder than the sirens approaching outside. Onyx sat beside him now, calmer, but eyes still locked on Zephyra's unconscious body. There was no bark anymore, just that eerie stillness, like something ancient had passed through and left a trace only the dog could sense. The man in the hoodie was gone. No one had even noticed. The airport clinic smelled of iodine and anxiety. Malik sat stiffly in the hallway chair, fingers tapping his thigh as fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Onyx lay curled at his feet, his eyes never leaving the room where Zephyra was being examined. Something about this felt wrong, off in a way that went deeper than protocol or instinct. It wasn't just the envelope in his pocket or the dog tag that bore his name. It was the look Onyx had given her, the recognition. Malik had seen that look once before, years ago in Kandahar, when Hollis had gone missing. He didn't want to remember that day, but the memory pressed harder than ever. It clawed at the back of his skull as if time itself demanded he face it. When the nurse finally waved him in, Malik stepped into the room slowly. Zephyr sat upright now, pale but composed. Hospital blanket pulled around her like armor. Her sunglasses were gone, revealing eyes darker than he expected, sharp, intelligent, tired. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then she whispered, "Do you know me?" The question cut through the air like a wire pulled too tight. Malik blinked. "No," he said, and it was the truth, or at least it should have been. "But you had my name on your wrist." She nodded slowly. "It was in my mother's things. She said if anything ever happened, I should find you." Her voice cracked slightly, but she didn't flinch. "She said you'd know what to do." Malik felt the heat rise in his chest. Not anger, not fear, just confusion that pressed in from all sides. "Your mother?" he asked. "Lena," she replied. "Lena Ashland. She translated for your unit." He stepped back like the name had knocked the breath out of him. Lena. Quiet, efficient, always in the background. She was never officially part of any mission, yet always present. Hollis had been close to her, closer than anyone else. Malik remembered now a photo Hollis once kept in his wallet. Folded so many times, it was nearly blank. Lena's eyes had looked like this. Zephyr watched him carefully. "She told me you and Hollis protected something over there. Something they didn't want found." Malik opened the envelope at last. Inside was a single page, old, yellowed. Handwriting rushed and barely legible. But the signature at the bottom was unmistakable. His own, Malik Rowan, authorization signature, Helix. He didn't remember signing anything like this. But the handwriting, his slant, his pressure, even the way he looped his R's was exact. "I never," he started, then stopped. Zephyr leaned forward. "You don't remember, do you?" Malik shook his head. The clinic felt smaller now, like the walls were listening. "What is Helix?" he asked. Zephyr hesitated. "I don't know everything, just fragments. My mother hid most of it, but I've been dreaming things." Malik frowned. "Like what?" "Like your dog," she whispered. "Onyx. I saw him before I ever stepped into this airport. I saw him when I was 6 years old." Malik froze. "That's not possible. I was in a white room," she continued. "There were wires. People in black coats. I was lying down, but I saw him watching me from behind a window. I thought it was a dream, until I saw him today." Onyx looked up at her now and his ears twitched, but he didn't growl. His eyes were wide, alert, listening. Malik stepped back, needing air, needing space that didn't exist. He left the room and walked until he reached the airport staff archives. Old files. Mostly digital now, but some missions still had paper trails, redacted of course. He typed in, "Helix, access denied, clearance level exceeded." His badge couldn't override it. But he tried another search. Lena Ashland, civilian translator. Kandahar. One file popped up, a SANS intake form blurred from age. At the bottom, a note. Malik printed it and stuffed it into his pocket. Back at the clinic, Zephyr had fallen asleep. Her fingers twitched slightly, her lips moving in silent speech. Onyx had curled beside her without prompting. Not guard mode, something more intimate, protective, familiar. Malik stood at the doorway and watched as she stirred. Aloes. He stepped in slowly. "What do you mean?" "Memories," she said. "Not all mine. Some feel inserted, like pieces of other people spliced into my head." She blinked. "Some of them feel like Hollis, some like Lena, but one feels like you." Malik felt the floor shift beneath him. Onyx sat up slowly, eyes darting between them. Zephyr reached under her pillow and pulled out a cassette tape, unlabeled. "I found this in a wooden box my mother kept inside a piano. She said never to open it unless something happened to her." Malik took the tape, turning it over in his hand. "You have a player?" "No," she said. "But you do, don't you?" He nodded slowly. In the back of his truck was an old Walkman he'd kept from Afghanistan, more out of habit than sentiment. He didn't know why he'd brought it to work today. Just a feeling, a pull, They sat in the security break room, door locked, blinds drawn. Malik slipped the cassette in, pressed play, static. Then a woman's voice, older, strained but unmistakably Lena. "If you're hearing this, Zephra, it means they're coming." Her voice trembled. "You are not who they told you. You were never meant to live a normal life. You were part of something bigger. Something they tried to erase. But I couldn't let them destroy what was left of your father." Malik pressed pause, fingers trembling. Zephra stared at the floor, lips parted as if remembering something ancient. Onyx let out a low, almost human whimper. Then suddenly, Malik's phone vibrated. Unknown number. A text. One word. Run. He looked up. Zephra was already staring at him. "They found me, didn't they?" she whispered. Malik didn't answer. He reached for his sidearm and unlocked the break room door as Onyx stood, growling low, not in fear, but in warning. The hallway outside was too quiet. Fluorescent lights flickered once. Then the building lost power. Malik moved through the darkened hallway like a ghost retracing his own footprints. The emergency lights cast long, flickering shadows across the floor as Onyx stalked ahead, his body low, nose twitching with sharp, calculated intent. Behind him, Zephra clutched the blanket around her shoulders, eyes darting, her every step uncertain yet somehow guided by something more than instinct. A soft electric hum returned as backup generators kicked in, restoring partial power to the airport security wing. The cameras blinked back to life, screens showing empty corridors and motionless waiting areas. But Malik wasn't looking for movement. He was scanning history. Back in the secure archive room, he shoved in the envelope Zephra had carried, removing the letter they thought they had already read. He held it under the ultraviolet forensic lamp, eyes narrowing. At first, nothing. Just the familiar handwriting of Hollis, bold, slanted, rushed. Then, slowly, faint lines began to emerge beneath the visible ink. A second layer of writing burned through like a whisper hidden beneath a scream. 5 words etched in invisible ink. "Don't trust anyone, not even him." Malik's hand clenched as he read the phrase again. The final word, "him," was underlined twice. He compared the handwriting carefully. The primary message was Hollis's, no doubt. But the invisible layer? It wasn't his print style, but the pressure of the strokes, the slant of the lowercase. Malik sat back, breath shallow. Why would a note addressed to Zephra include a warning against himself? Had he written that and forgotten? Or had someone mimicked him down to the muscle memory? Or worse, had he been part of this from the beginning and had his mind wiped clean? The idea curdled in his gut. From the corner of the room, Zephra stepped forward slowly, her voice hesitant. He hesitated. "Just an older note layered underneath," he said, slipping the page back into the envelope before she could see it. She didn't press further, but Onyx turned to look at him, as if sensing the lie. Malik pushed past it. There was something else he needed to see. He searched the local military archive node, accessing an encrypted mirror still active on a secure Homeland Security network, one that contained redacted personnel records from overseas tours. He typed in, "Hollis Rare Bagram, 2004. Several files popped up. A few were standard military logs, transport orders, deployment memos. But one entry stood out. It was labeled simply, Joint Base Orientation Classified Image Lock. The file required biometric unlock. Malik placed his thumb against the scanner, and after a tense pause, it clicked green. The photo appeared, grainy but unmistakable. 3 figures stood under harsh desert sun in front of a concrete wall tagged with faded unit insignia. One was Hollis, unmistakable in his broad shoulders and cocky stance. The second was Malik himself, clean-shaven, leaner, eyes sharper than he remembered. But the third figure took his breath away. A little girl, maybe 5 years old, with dark curls and deep brown skin, held between them like a shared secret. She wore oversized goggles and a camo jacket that reached her knees. In her small hand she gripped a white cloth bear frayed at the ear. The same bear that had fallen from Zephra's paper bag at the airport. Malik zoomed in, pulse hammering. The arch of her brow, the arch of her brow. It was Zephra, but she shouldn't have been there. Civilians weren't permitted on site, especially children. And yet, there she was, cradled in a moment of impossible truth. He turned to her now, still watching the screen, lips parted. "Zephra," he said softly, "what do you remember about your childhood?" She blinked, clearly taken off guard. Not much. My mother said we moved a lot, that we lived on bases, but I wasn't allowed outside. I thought. Malik spun the monitor toward her. Is this you? She stared. The color drained from her face. She stumbled back half a step. That's the bear, she whispered. That's me. That's my mother's jacket, but I don't remember this. I don't remember him. Her voice cracked. Or you. Malik turned the monitor back, heart racing. There's no record of you in that base manifest, no civilian child registered. Which means you weren't supposed to exist. She stared at the photo, like trying to read a language she used to know but had long since forgotten. Do you think Hollis knew? He had to, Malik said. And if he did, then maybe that's why he didn't finish the sentence. Zephyra nodded slowly, then tilted her head. Do you hear that? Hear what? Malik asked, pausing. There's static. She looked around, not from the speakers inside. She tapped her temple, like a signal, but it's broken. You're sure? She nodded. It started after we played the tape, like something inside. These memories aren't yours. Then they belong to someone, or multiple someones, she said. My dreams? Sometimes I see different faces when I look in the mirror. It's like I'm carrying echoes of people I've never met. Malik sat down heavily, the weight of too many unknowns pressing into his lungs. Someone wanted you to find me. Someone wanted to trigger this. But I don't know if it was Hollis or... His voice trailed off as the security feed blinked on the main screen. One hallway corridor D7 showed motion. 2 figures moving through in surgical masks and hospital scrubs. No visible ID. One carried a case marked bio. The other was carrying a child-sized thermal satchel. Malik leaned in. That's not right. Lower sub-basement. It was sealed after the 2009 renovation. He grabbed his badge and gun. Stay here, she said, already following. If they're trying to erase this, they'll erase me too. Malik didn't argue. They moved quickly, Onyx padding ahead, his movements no longer cautious but urgent. Down through the access stairwell into the basement levels long disused, the air turning colder. Walls shifting from smooth drywall to exposed cinder block. Malik's flashlight flicked ahead, catching dust and metal. They reached the corridor just in time to hear a door click shut around the corner. Then another voice, a man's, muffled but clear enough to register. Bag secured. Package 2 unstable. Begin burn protocol within 10. Malik raised his weapon and turned the corner. Onyx growled deep, guttural, and something metal hit the floor. The door burst open with a metal crack as Malik stepped into the basement lab, his sidearm raised, eyes sweeping across the dimly lit room. The 2 figures had already vanished, leaving behind a haze of sterilizing mist and the faint scent of storched plastic. A storage case marked with biohazard warnings lay overturned near the wall. Its contents spilled syringes, vials, and a sealed black envelope, now partially melted at the corner. Zephyra entered seconds behind, breathing hard, eyes immediately drawn to the glowing wall console still active behind a cracked glass panel. Onyx stood at the threshold, unmoving, his gaze locked on something they couldn't yet see. Malik scanned the room for traps, then approached the console, accessing the terminal through emergency override. Sand his wings out, showing real-time biometric readouts. For nobodies weren't human. Zephyra leaned in. Is that a canine neural signature? It's Onyx, Malik murmured. But the readings, these spikes, this isn't normal. The monitor pulsed with sharp waveforms that surged and fell in irregular bursts. But something happened the moment Zephyr reached out and touched Onyx's fur. Every light on the console blinked. The waveform doubled. Alarms triggered internally. A second screen popped open, unprompted, displaying the word sync, and instantly the lights returned to normal. The sync message vanished. Try it again, Malik said. She hesitated, then placed her hand on Onyx's shoulder. The spike returned. The sync resumed. 89%, 90%, 91%, 91%. He knew me before I knew myself. Onyx's ears twitched as if in response. Malik accessed the console's hidden layer, an encryption shell beneath the biometric data. It required both canine DNA and something else, an authentication code labeled Helix X. Zephyr's presence was triggering that code. He opened a drawer nearby and pulled out an old EKG sensor unit still connected to portable meta-analysis gear. "We're testing this right now," he said. Told Onyx again. She did. The machine beeped sharply, detecting dual signals, her neural output and Onyx's limbic system, and showed overlap. "That shouldn't be possible," Malik whispered. "There's no reason these would sync unless—" His voice trailed off. Zephyr's pulse began to accelerate. "Unless what?" "Unless he's not just syncing with you," Malik said. "He's amplifying you. He's a gene amplifier. A carrier unit. He's wired to respond to specific biosignatures. Yours?" Zephyr stared. "You think he's been trained to bond with my DNA?" Malik stepped closer. "I think he was built to." He reached down and gently opened Onyx's mouth. The dog didn't resist. Carefully, Malik examined his jawline, then paused. Something gleamed faintly from the back of the upper canine. "There's a capacitor," he said. "Titanium alloy." He used a portable light scope to magnify it and gasped softly. Embedded in the core of the tooth was a microseal. "Storage for what?" Zephyr asked. Malik pulled out a microscanner from the med unit and passed it over the tooth. The scanner emitted a shrill series of beeps and lit up green. "Bio-key match data. Helix conduct evaded." "Oh my God," Malik muttered. "There's a chip inside. But it's coded. Locked unless it reads a matching helix marker." He turned to Zephyr. "That means you?" Zephyr stepped back. "You want me to what, bite him?" "No," Malik said. "We need a biomedium. Saliva or blood. Just enough contact to trigger the read." She hesitated. Then, without another word, she pulled a sterile swab from the kit, pressed it against her inner cheek, then touched it gently to Onyx's tooth. The reaction was immediate. The terminal screen exploded with data. Genetic strands unspooled across the monitor. Codes layered with coordinates. Hidden logs. A message playback queue. Malik stared, reading aloud. "Helix Subject 6A recognized. Secondary carrier confirmed. Executing unlock protocol." Zephyr was shaking. "What does that mean?" "It means," Malik said slowly, "you're the second part of a dual authentication key, and Onyx is the other half. Together you just opened something no one's seen since Helix was shut down." The screen flashed white, then black, and began playing a video, grainy, time-stamped, March 3, 2004. Bagram. A man appeared on screen. Hollis. He was younger, cleaner, but his eyes held the same weight they did in every memory. He leaned into the camera. "If you're seeing this, it means the project failed. Or succeeded, depending on how you look at it. Helix wasn't just about making enhanced operatives. It was about inheritance. Passing memory, instinct, even decision-making down the bloodline. DNA wasn't just code, it was command. And that's why I took him." The camera turned to show a crate. Inside was a small black and brown German Shepherd puppy. Ears too big for his head. Eyes impossibly bright. "We didn't engineer him," Hollis said. "We found him. Born from a prototype breeding cycle that went off book. He responded to her touch at 6 months. Synced in under a minute. That's not training. That's design." Malik whispered. "He saved the dog." "To save you." But the terminal wasn't finished. A third file opened. This one encrypted in triple code. Malik tried to access it, but the screen prompted for a new key. Phase 2 initiation, Subject 6A and 6B. "Who the hell is Subject 6B? Malik asked. The answer came not from the screen but from Onyx, who let out a sudden bark and turned sharply toward the stairwell. His body tensed. Growling, defensive. Something was coming, something triggered by that name. Zephyr's hand fell to her side instinctively. "I think I am 6B. Malik turned to the screen again, scanning data. Coordinates appeared: latitude, longitude, overlaying a forested region somewhere deep in Oregon. "It's another helix." But before he could say more, a second alarm sounded. This one real, loud, pulsing. The terminal screen flashed again. BioLink tracery. New York City archivation. The shrill blare of the alarm echoed like a siren inside Malik's ribs. Each pulse of light from the emergency beacons slicing the darkness into jagged shards. Onyx barked once, then launched himself down the corridor with precision honed over a lifetime of silent drills and real blood. Malik shouted Zephyr's name as she stood frozen in the pale light from the terminal. Her pupils dilated, one hand still hovering over the glowing console that now repeated a message over and over again. "Carrier link confirmed. Uplink stabilizing, memory node active. But Zephyra didn't look afraid. She looked resolved. They found it, she whispered, her voice hollow like it had traveled too far to reach her throat. Malik grabbed her arm. Urgent now. What the hell did we just trigger? She looked at him then, not with panic, but with the sadness of someone who had finally accepted the truth she had run from her entire life. They're not coming for me, she said. I'm going to them. Malik blinked. What are you talking about? I seen it before, she said, stepping away from him, hands slipping free of his grasp. In the dreams, in the static, a place underground carved into stone. My mother called it the vault, but I remembered it as the memory station. That's where they stored the original data. Data from what? From us? From the first Helix trials. It's not just information, it's a living archive. Neural echoes. It was the only way to preserve what we were without them knowing. Malik tried to follow, but her words moved faster than his understanding. Wait, them? You mean Rayon? Yes, she said. They think they're the architects, but they were just the cleanup crew. They erase, but we remember. Before he could respond, Onyx lunged forward, but Malik held him back, uncertain. She disappeared into the stairwell, and by the time he reached the next level, she was gone. Security footage showed two figures exiting the emergency stairwell, Zephyra and someone else. A woman in a black coat and tactical gear, her face obscured but her gait unmistakable. Calm, trained, calculated. They passed two guards without incident, flashed ID badges that scanned green, and rolled Zephyra out in a wheelchair that carried no medical tracking device. It had been too smooth, too rehearsed to be improvisation. Malik replayed the footage again and again, heart twisting with something heavier than failure. She hadn't been abducted. She had left, by choice, and that made everything worse. The next 12 hours were a blur of secure channel calls, private pings to off-good contacts, and hunting through network tunnels that barely still existed. No official channels responded. No federal trace flags were triggered. Whoever took her wasn't working through government clearance. They were under. Malik called in one favor he had sworn never to ask. An encrypted line to a woman named Alina, former NSA black hat turned whistleblower. She answered with a dry voice and zero patience. I told you, Rowan, if you ever call this number. They took a Helix subject, he interrupted. And they knew how to bypass terminal link protocols without setting off a public trace. Silence. Then a soft sigh. That means one of two things. Either you triggered a ghost flag embedded in the Helix matrix, or someone inside the program never left. Whoever let her out, she went willingly, Malik said. Like she knew her. Get out, you're not allowed to leave. Nothing has changed, but now I know, she responded. Enhancing facial data, wait. Her voice dropped. That's not possible. Who is she? Malik asked. Name's been wiped, but I recognized the bone structure. I pulled her DNA sequence once during an audit of failed subjects. Helix Phase 0. Designation C1. 0? Malik asked. Before the official Phase 1? Yeah. There was a prototype batch. Only one survived. She vanished during the Langley sweep. They thought she self-terminated. Guess not. Do you have a name? Cassandra Voss. The name hit Malik like an electric jolt. He had heard it whispered before, years ago, back in Kandahar when Hollis had argued with someone over comms. She's not ready, Hollis had yelled. She's just a child. You can't let Cassandra near her. Malik had never known who he meant until now. She's alive, Malik said. And she has Zephyra. Then you better find them fast, Alina warned. Voss's deep ore. If she resurfaced, it's not by accident. It's because the system reactivated. Phase 2 isn't a response. Meanwhile, Zephyra sat in the back of a nondescript black SUV speeding through the Appalachian backroads, flanked by Cassandra Voss, who drove in silence. The woman's face was calm, focused, but her eyes flickered in the mirror every few seconds. Not with paranoia, but with care. You still dream of the vault? Cassandra asked quietly. Zephyra nodded. I think so. It's not memory, it's imprint, Cassandra said. You placed the images there. You needed to find your way back without being guided. That was the only way to ensure the connection was genuine. Zephyra turned. Why me? Because you're what I wasn't, Cassandra said. I was built, you were born, there's a difference. Zephyra studied her face. Who are you? Cassandra hesitated, then said softly, Your mother. Zephyr recoiled, laughter bursting out in disbelief. No, my mother was Lena Ashland. Lena was your short. They couldn't let you grow in a lab. You needed emotion, grounding, connection. So I ran, I found Lena. She agreed to raise you as her own, and for a time it worked. Zephyr stared out the window, the mountains rolling past like silent witnesses to her unraveling identity. Why now? Why come back now? Because the signal activated, Cassandra said. And once it does, there's no turning it off. You think you left on your own, but part of you was already answering the call. What happens when I get there? Zephyr asked. The vault holds what they buried. Memory banks, data strands, neural echoes of every subject they touched. But more than that, it holds the blueprint of what comes next. And you? I was the failed first draft, Cassandra said without bitterness. But you are the page they never meant to be written. Zephyr didn't know whether to scream or cry. Onyx wasn't with her. Malik wasn't with her. And the woman beside her claimed blood, but carried the chill of machinery in her voice. Still, as the road curved around a cliff and descended into a hidden ravine thick with mist, something inside her pulled forward. Not fear, not instinct, but memory. A memory that didn't belong to her, but fit her like it had waited a lifetime to be worn. Ahead, beneath layers of moss and camouflage netting, a steel door blinked with biometric scanner. Cassandra parked, unbuckled, and turned to her. Are you ready to remember? The steel door hissed open like an exhale from something ancient, and the stale air inside the vault wrapped around Zephyr's skin with the cold weight of memory. Cassandra walked ahead without hesitation, her boots echoing against the reinforced concrete floor in rhythmic cadence. The hallway was dimly lit, lined with embedded fiber optic veins that pulsed faintly as if responding to their presence. Zephyr followed in silence, each step heavier than the last. She didn't ask where they were going, she already knew. Not from any prior knowledge, but from the way her body moved as if retracing forgotten muscle memory. At the first junction, Cassandra paused, scanned her hand over a retinal panel, and when the door clicked open, she looked back. What you feel now, it will only get louder. Zephyr said nothing, but already, the buzz in the back of her head, the soft static that had begun the moment they crossed the threshold was deepening, threading itself into her thoughts like a whisper woven through fog. It wasn't one voice, it was 5, distinct yet overlapping, muffled yet insistent. One asked a question, another answered, the rest lingered in fragments she couldn't yet translate. She stopped walking, placed her palm against the cool wall, and the moment her skin made contact, the pulse of the corridor surged upward. Lights brightened. The whisper turned into rhythm. Cassandra watched her closely. You're attuned. More than I expected. What are they? Zephyr asked. Not what, Cassandra said. Who? You're hearing the others. They've begun to activate. Zephyr pulled her hand away, stunned. Where are they? Scattered. Hidden. Some not even aware of who they are. But the moment your link came online, it triggered a cascade. Like radio towers pinging each other across a dead grid. You're the first node. You're the beacon. Zephyr stumbled backward. I'm not a damn transmitter, yes, Cassandra said calmly. You are. That's what the Z designation was for. You were the final strain, built with echo sensitivity. Not just to receive, but to stabilize. The others can't survive full activation unless you're online. Zephyr muttered. That's what it means, isn't it? Cassandra's eyes flickered. I was a protocol. No, Cassandra said softly. You were always a person, but your name was the blueprint for what you were built to carry. Zephyr's chest tightened. And what is that? Signal absorption, memory containment, emotional regulation across gene lag carriers. You weren't designed to fight. You were designed to keep others from falling apart. Zephyr turned away, teeth clenched, trying to silence the chorus now growing louder in her skull. One voice was crying. Another was breathing fast, panicked. One muttered something about fire. The remaining 2 were incoherent but pulsing with overwhelming fear. She clutched her temples, gasping. I can feel them. They're waking up. Cassandra moved closer. Let it come. If you resist it, it fragments. You need coherence to hold them together. They're not Zephyr snapped. They're not mine to hold. They are, Cassandra said. Let it go. If you resist it, it fragments. They should. Zephyra backed away again, heartbeat pounding. Her reflection in the dark metal wall flickered, distorted. For a second, she thought she saw another face layered beneath her own eyes, wider, younger, terrified. She shook her head. One of them's just a kid, Subject 6B. Cassandra nodded. Came. Oregon sector. He came online 12 hours ago. He's moving now. Unconsciously drawn to you. Why possess? Zephyra dropped to her knees. The voices swelling now like waves crashing through her frontal cortex. She couldn't separate her thoughts from theirs. One moment she was in the vault. The next, she saw snow. A hand covered in blood. A cracked mirror. A hospital bed. None of it was hers. All of it belonged to her. How do I stop it? She begged. You don't, Cassandra said. You shape it, you merge it. That's the purpose of your neural elasticity. You are not the beginning of the chain, you are the knot that holds it from breaking. Zephyra looked up slowly. I didn't ask for this. No, Cassandra said. But you survived it. Only 1 in 10,000 can reach full cognition without neural collapse. You didn't just survive, you stabilized. The lights along the corridor shifted to red for a moment. Soft chime ringing from somewhere deeper within the vault. Cassandra stood. You're converging now, the signal is building. Phase 2 is live. Zephyra's mouth was dry. Phase 2 of what? Integration. They won't come to you as themselves. They'll come in pieces, emotions, images, reactions. It's your job to reassemble them before Rayon finds them. Why would they care? Because when the Helix aligns, Cassandra said, it doesn't just create memory. It creates command. Zephyra froze. Command? Shared instinct, Cassandra explained. Linked response. Once the 6 nodes are synced, the neural pattern becomes a hive structure, a sentient loop capable of decision-making beyond individual will. That's why they terminated the program. It worked too well. Zephyra rose to her feet slowly, her breathing finally evening out. You're saying I'm some kind of anchor for a distributed consciousness. Exactly, Cassandra said. And if Rayon gets their hands on you before you anchor the others, they won't need control because they'll have obedience. Zephyra turned to the vault's core chamber door, her fingers twitching. And if I bring them all online, then you decide what the network becomes, Cassandra said. Empathy, memory, or destruction. Zephyra took a step forward, the static in her head clarifying now, rearranging into threads she could almost untangle. She heard Kane again, clearer this time. He was afraid, alone, but reaching for her, and behind him the echo of a girl's voice humming a tune Zephyra had never heard, but somehow knew by heart. The snow was everywhere, thick and endless, falling like ash across a forest bathed in silence. Zephyra ran barefoot through the drifts, her breath sharp in her lungs, her heartbeat echoing in a tempo not her own. Each step sank deeper, but she didn't slow. Something was pulling her forward, not in fear but with urgency, like the part of her that had never known stillness was now fully awake. The trees grew thinner, the cold sharper, and then she saw a boy, no older than 16, pale skin flushed red from exposure, lips trembling, his nose bleeding freely as he stumbled through the white. His eyes met hers, and for one suspended moment in that dream state, recognition cracked open like thunder between them. Zephyra, he gasped, his voice already known to her before he said it. He fell to his knees, snow billowing around him, blood dotting the ground like code spilled from his veins. She reached for him, hand extended, but before they touched, the sky fractured with a soundless scream and everything went black. Zephyra bolted upright in the cot, drenched in sweat, her fists clenched so tightly her nails had broken the skin of her palms. The vault room was dim, quiet, except for the low mechanical hum of dormant servers breathing in the dark. Cassandra sat nearby, awake, her face unreadable. Kane, Zephyra whispered. Cassandra nodded. They always find each other in the dreams first. Neural affinity primes through subconscious channels. The link is real. Zephyra stood, legs shaky. He's scared, bleeding. I felt everything. That's because your mind is starting to harmonize with his signal, Cassandra said. But once you're fully in sync, you won't just feel what he feels, you'll act on it before he does. That's why your connection is dangerous. It removes instinctual boundaries. Zephyra paced, her hands shaking. I need to find him. You will, when half first. You need to decide who you're going to be when you do. Meanwhile, in a safe house across the state line, Malik sat alone in the glow of an aging monitor, fingers curled around a flash drive he had retrieved from an anonymous drop point at the edge of the old base perimeter. The only identifying feature was a burned-in serial code on the casing that matched one of Hollis's ghost operation IDs from Kandahar. He inserted the drive. A video file loaded. No encryption, no signature, just one timestamp, 2:14 a.m. March 4, 2004. The footage was grainy, the angle tilted, as though recorded in a hurry. Hollis appeared on screen, face bruised, lips cracked, eyes steady despite the blood dried on his temple. He looked straight into the lens. It means she's alive. He paused, then exhaled deeply, as if forcing truth through cracked ribs. Her name's Zifra, but that name isn't hers. It's what they built her to be. She was never supposed to wake up. Not without me. And if she has... He swallowed hard. Then she's carrying more than memory. She's carrying choice. Malik leaned forward, breath caught in his throat. Hollis continued, Rowan, you were the only one I trusted. That's why I looped you into the Helix files without clearance. That's why I signed your name on the initial codex. You deserve to know the truth, even if it broke you. Because if she ever changes, if the Zephyr you meet isn't the child I knew, then you're the one who has to stop. The screen flickered. Hollis's voice dropped. Don't let her fall into their hands. Don't let them rewrite her. The screen went black. Malik sat still, unable to move, his thoughts drowning in a swell of emotion too sharp to articulate. He had known Hollis better than anyone, but this wasn't just a farewell, it was a command, and one he never wanted to fulfill. The door creaked behind him. Onyx padded in, his dark eyes locking onto Malik's with the same unwavering focus that had saved his life more times than he could count. Malik reached down, rubbing the dog's shoulder. She's out there, he murmured, and I don't know if I'm the one meant to protect her or stop her. Onyx whined low, then walked to the window, tail stiff, ears raised. Something in the air had shifted. Malik turned toward the laptop. A blinking red dot had appeared on a tracking overlay, a signature pulse, faint but growing. Zephyr, somewhere in the ridge just beyond the border, the same place where Hollis had buried the original satchel, the same zone Malik had never dared revisit. He stood, grabbing his gear. Come on, boy, looks like we're going home. Back in the vault, Zephyr sat with Cassandra at the neural interface panel, eyes shut as the threads of the other voices wove tighter into her thoughts. One was clearer now, Kane. He had stopped crying. He was moving, she could feel his muscles burn, his feet cut through snow. But someone else was near him, a presence masked behind static. Not Rayon. Something worse. Someone familiar. He's not alone, she whispered. Cassandra looked up sharply. Then we have to reach him first. Zephyr rose, now steady, her fingers pressing against the metal table to ground herself. You said I'm not meant to lead them, but I don't think they need a leader. I think they need someone who knows what pain feels like. Cassandra tilted her head. And you think you're that person? Zephyr met her gaze. I'm the only one who hears them cry. The interface buzzed, a waveform spike mapping a real-time neural sync across 4 unstable nodes. One of them blinked gold, then green. Kane, Zephyr said again, and this time it wasn't a question. Outside, wind howled across the ridge. The vault's silent seals shifted once more as the world began to move beneath their feet. Zephyr stood barefoot on the stone floor of the vault, her eyes closed, arms slack at her sides, while the hum inside her head reached a frequency that no longer hurt, but instead aligned an inner metronome calibrating itself to something impossibly distant, yet intimately familiar. She could feel Kane now, not just in emotion or dream logic, but in the way her blood responded to the images flashing behind her eyelids. Pine trees rushing past his shoulders, his breath ragged as he ran across a frozen ravine, a rifle's safety click disengaging behind him. He wasn't just afraid, he was being hunted. Her heart pulsed once, and with it came a word scream. She whispered it aloud, not sure whether it came from within her or from Kane himself. But Cassandra turned sharply, the name slicing through the sterile silence of the vault, like a warning bell. Where did you hear that? Cassandra asked, but Zephyr's eyes remained closed, lips moving without conscious control. Northwest quadrant, 4 miles off Gid. The trees are soaked. There's blood on his sleeve. He tore it jumping a fence. He's 2 minutes from crossing into open snow. Cassandra moved forward, stunned. That's a confirmed rayon black zone. We never embedded signals there. Zephyra opened her eyes slowly. I didn't read it. I saw it like it happened to me. She turned toward the central console, hands already activating systems with gestures she'd never been taught. The interface recognized her without query, unlocking a map overlaid with dormant nodes except for one now blinking bright red over Pennsylvania. Cassandra stared at the screen. He's awake but destabilized. If RAO intercepts before full neural harmony completes, they'll reset his cortex. He'll never be able to anchor. Zephyra's voice dropped. Then I have to reach him first. 300 miles away, Malik and Onyx were tracking a known data leak connected to Rayon's shadow network, following a trail of silenced agents and erased checkpoints. Malik's thoughts were split, half focused on decoding the movement of the organization that seemed to know his every move. The other haunted by the message Hollis left behind, the weight of that final instruction digging into his chest like a second heartbeat. Onyx paced nervously beside him inside the temporary command post, his ears twitching at sounds Malik couldn't hear. When Malik gave the command to sit, the dog hesitated, then turned away, walking instead toward the back of the cabin where the uplink radio sat powered down. Malik stood. Onyx, sit. But Onyx didn't move. Instead, he placed both paws on the edge of the comms console and nudged the dial. Static burst to life, followed by a single repeated tone. A frequency loop. Not military, not local, something else. Something tied to the vault. Malik watched, confused. What are you doing? The dog growled once, low and steady, then stepped back as the radio began to tune itself through a cycle of harmonics that Malik had no clearance to access. The waveform stabilized at 37.2 Hz, one that matched the neuroprint Malik had only just seen in Zephyra's decoded helix file. You're sinking, he said under his breath. Onyx turned to face him, but the obedience was gone. Not defiant, but redirected, his focus no longer tied to Malik's commands. Instead, his body stood rigid like a soldier awaiting instruction from a different officer. That officer, Malik realized with a cold chill, wasn't him. At that same moment, Zephyra stepped out of the vault into the icy air of the Appalachian Ridge, wind biting against her skin but unable to shake her focus. The team Cassandra had reactivated stood ready with unmarked transport vehicles, data suppression drones, and a neural stabilizer chamber, waiting for Kane's arrival, if he could survive the next 6 hours. Zephyra looked north, not with the eyes of someone navigating terrain, but like someone who could feel a gravitational pull tethered to her own mind. I know where he'll stop, she said, climbing into the lead vehicle. There's an old grain silo half submerged in snow. He'll take cover there. It's the only place that echoes. Cassandra turned to her. Echoes? Zephyra met her eyes. I don't mean sound. Meanwhile, Kane stumbled into the edge of a clearing, breath hitching, his jacket torn and his legs trembling beneath the weight of exhaustion. Behind him, shadows moved, 3 figures in all-black tactical gear sweeping silently through the snow. One raised a hand, signaling the other 2 to flank. Kane ducked into the hollow base of the ruined silo and pressed his back against the steel, his thoughts screaming not in fear but in instinct. Help me. That was all Zephyra needed. 3,000 kilometers away, her spine stiffened as the thought pierced straight through her frontal cortex. The team moved. Cassandra's voice on the comms was crisp. ETA to intercept. 90 minutes. Malik's tracker beeped again, the red pulse shifted locations, now blinking in tandem with the same frequency Onyx had locked onto. Malik didn't ask for permission. He loaded his gear, clipped Onyx's harness, and whispered, "You're following her now, aren't you?" Onyx thumped his tail once. Malik exhaled. "Then take me to her." In the woods near Scranton, Kane gripped a rusted pipe like a weapon, his vision blurring. One of the RAI operatives stepped into the clearing, voice calm but cold. "Subject 6B, return with us. You are in breach of protocol." Kane's lips split into a bitter smile. "You think I know what that means?" The operative didn't respond. A second stepped forward. "We're not here to hurt you." "But she's not who you think." Kane flinched. "You don't even know her." The first man raised a small black box from his belt. "We know her better than she knows herself." Then, from the darkness behind them, a shape moved, fast, low, unseen. Onyx leapt through the snow with the force of an avalanche, slamming into the second operative before the man could react. Cain staggered, staring at the dog in disbelief. Behind him, a second vehicle slid to a halt, and Zephyr stepped out, eyes locked onto his donor through the falling snow. "You found her," he said, voice cracking. She nodded once. "You called me." The storm had rolled in fast, masking their approach beneath a dense fog that clung to the earth like memory. Malik, Zephyr, Cain, Cassandra, and Onyx stood on the ridge above the final Rayon facility, an abandoned weather station on the books but a fortress beneath the ground. Zephyr stared at it with quiet clarity, her breath steady even as the others prepared for breach. "This is where it ends," she said, not as a prediction but as a statement of fact. Cassandra turned toward her, eyes narrowing. "Or where it begins again." They descended in silence. The snow muffled their movement, and Onyx moved ahead without command, following a path none of them could see. He stopped at a steel panel half buried beneath frozen mud. Cassandra knelt, wiped it clean, and keyed in a code she hadn't used in 15 years. The hatch opened with a low hydraulic groan, revealing a shaft that dropped into darkness. One by one, they descended. The corridor below was wide, lined with flickering lights and old tech long since stripped of branding. Everything here had been erased, even the ghosts. Malik took point. Cain watched their six, and Zephyr moved like she already knew every hallway. They passed empty chambers, glass rooms with surgical chairs, testing pods with claw marks etched into the steel, databanks pulsing with obsolete code. Then, at the heart of the complex, the door opened with a hiss, and they found him. Dr. Elias Crane, frail, white-bearded, hooked to 3 IVs and a retinal monitor, sitting beneath a floodlight in a room that had once been filled with instruments now reduced to silence. His eyes lifted as they entered, and when they landed on Zephyr, he smiled not with joy but with the hollow resignation of a man who'd been waiting for a reckoning. He rasped, "You made it after all." Zephyr stepped forward slowly. "You know who I am?" "Of course," he said. "I made you." Malik raised his weapon, but Crane waved it off. "Please. If you wanted me dead, you'd have done it on the way in. I'm not the threat anymore. I'm the confession." Cassandra remained silent, arms crossed. Zephyr's voice was even. "What was I supposed to be?" Crane coughed into his sleeve, then looked at her. "Not the first, not the strongest. You were supposed to be the correction, the lesson we learned after every failure before you." Zephyr's brow tightened. "What failures?" "The Helix program was never about enhancement," he said. "It was about stability. We could build strength, we could inject instinct. But the mind always broke." His eyes flicked toward Cain. "Until your strain, we never had synchronization without psychotic bleed. You're the first to hold the others together without collapse." "And the others?" Malik asked. "Were they destroyed?" Crane shook his head. "Worse, they were unfinished." Zephyr stepped closer. "Her many 6 trials. You were the 6th, but there was a prototype before all of you. A child born from synthetic gene layers. Grown, not carried, no mother, no tether, only command." Cassandra stiffened. "You said that subject died in 2010. Crane smiled thinly. "I said that because I wanted it to be true. We lost contact. She escaped containment. We thought the neural programming degraded. We were wrong." He motioned toward the screen beside him, barely powered but still functional. Zephyr touched the console. The system flickered to life. A black window opened. Text scrolled across the screen. Helix Subject Index. Then a line in red, Subject 0 SAT. "You is the network. We built Ron to control her, but she turned it against us. The moment she stabilized, she rewrote the command structure. She is the director now. You thought Rayon was hunting you?" He looked at Zephyr. "They're just executing her will." Malik frowned. "You're telling me this entire Black Cell program is being run by a rogue Helix subject?" "Not rogue," Crane said softly. "Purposed. She didn't rebel, she evolved." "What's her name?" Zephyr asked. Crane looked at her for a long time. "She has none. She erased it herself, but we called her Eve." Cassandra stepped forward. "Why is she still alive?" Crane's voice dropped. "Because she thinks she's alone, and when the first of anything believes that, it gets dangerous." Zephyr's fingers clenched against the console. "She's not just another node. She's the source code, and now that you've activated, she'll sense you. She'll come for you, not to destroy you but to join you. And if she does, if you sync, Cassandra's face paled, the network completes. And? Malek asked. Crane looked at him with a gravity that shook the air. And then we're not in control of evolution anymore. She is. The screen behind them changed again. Lines of code forming symbols none of them could read. Then an image. A young girl, maybe 9, staring into a camera lens with eyes too old for her face. Her expression was blank, unfeeling, watching. Then the screen flashed. Helix_0. Inbound symbols for heavy lifted. The countdown had already started when Zephyra felt the shift in her chest. Not fear or panic, but a soft contraction of something deeper, like gravity bending inward, pulling her toward the core of everything they had fought to uncover. The underground chamber where Helix 0 was kept was sealed behind 9 layers of biometric security, electromagnetic pulses, and a fail-safe kill switch programmed to erase every trace of her existence if breached. But none of it mattered anymore. Not after the signal went active. Not after Eve reached back across the network and said without words, "I see you." Zephyra walked ahead of the team, silent, unarmed, her steps steady and deliberate. Malek called after her, voice tight. "Zephyra, we don't know what's waiting inside." She didn't turn. "That's why I'm going in alone." Onyx stood at the threshold, tense, eyes locked on the reinforced door. Then, without being told, he stepped aside, letting her pass. Malek's heart pounded, but he didn't stop her. He only whispered, "Come back," and hoped someone or something was listening. The room was quiet when the final door hissed open. It wasn't a lab or a prison or a command center. It was a nursery. A single chair sat beneath a soft light, a worn blanket folded in a corner. And at the center, encased in a transparent sphere of humming energy, sat a girl, no older than 10, pale skin, hair tied in uneven braids, bare feet swinging gently above the floor. Her eyes were wide, gray, not cold but void of anything human. But the moment she saw Zephyra, she tilted her head. "You came." Zephyra stepped forward slowly. "I didn't come to fight." The child blinked once. "But you carry the override." Zephyra opened her palm. In her hand was a strip of encoded biopoly, the last unreadable strand from her blood sample. They had thought it was junk code, but inside was a sequence that formed a voice print, not audio but emotional resonance. She placed it into the reader beside the containment shell. The system blinked. A projection appeared mid-air. Hollis, younger than Zephyr, remembered him, his voice rough but soft. "If you're hearing this, it means you unlocked the last piece. It means you've seen what we did, what we made. I don't expect you to forgive me, Zephyra, but I didn't do this for them. I did it for you, because I thought I could protect the world by giving it control. But control doesn't protect it, only breaks. And if you find her, if you find the first, don't destroy her. Forgive her, because she didn't choose this. Because I was there when we made her, and I didn't stop it. I was part of the darkness, so if you have the strength, be the light." The recording ended. Zephyra let the silence breathe. Then she turned back to the girl. "Do you know who he was?" The child nodded. "He used to read to me, before they took my voice." The child hesitated. "They called me Zero." Zephyra stepped closer. "That's not a name." The girl looked down. "You don't remember another?" Zephyr took one more step, placing her hand on the shell. It hummed, then pulsed once, sinking to her bioacquisition. The lights dimmed. The lockdown code appeared across the glass. "Final command authority ready." A single option blinked beneath it. "Nope." Zephyr stared at the button. Then she closed her eyes. When she opened them again, her voice was steady. "Release." The chamber powered down. The shield collapsed. The girl blinked, confused. Then she stood, small and shaking, her knees knocking. Zephyra crossed the distance in 2 steps and knelt before her. "You're not a weapon." The girl flinched. "They said I was designed to fix the future." Zephyr's voice broke. "So was I. But the future doesn't need to be fixed. It needs to be forgiven." The girl stared at her, unsure, trembling. Then, slowly, she opened her arms. Zephyra embraced her, pulling her close, her chin against the crown of the child's head. At that moment, every light in the facility dimmed. Systems powered down. Hard drives melted. Rayon's uplink disconnected, and the signal that had haunted their bloodlines for 15 years went silent. Outside the chamber, Cassandra stared at the monitors as one by one the nodes shut off. Kane leaned against the wall, tears in his eyes, feeling a weight he couldn't name finally lift. Malalik lowered his weapon and whispered, "She did it." Onyx, watching through the glass, let out a long, broken whimper, not in fear or pain. The sound wasn't canine, it was mournful, grateful, almost prayerful. In the center of the room, Zephyra held the first child of Helix, the ghost who had once been a storm and felt her heartbeat slow into something human. There were no more commands, no more protocols, only a silence filled with breath and the sound of one girl forgiving another. If this story moved you, consider subscribing for more cinematic tales like this one. Which moment hit you the hardest? Was it the reunion, the truth about Eve, or Hollis's final message? And where in the world are you watching from? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We're listening.